Past Now Read presents another entry in our anthology of stories that need to be told. He never looked at me. Enjoy. If you have a story that needs to be told, email it to stories@pastnowread.com. The Look He Never Gave. I heard the dog before I saw him, pacing again. Slow, deliberate steps outside my son's door, his nails whispering across the laminate like raindrops on a windshield. The same rhythm every night, ever since we brought Radar home. 8 years of silence returned in kind. No bark, no growl, just presence. I sat on the couch with my laptop, code still blinking in my periphery. The AI platform I helped build had evolved into something I barely recognized. At first, it predicted market swings and emotional buying patterns. Now it tracked behavioral drift in people, especially children, with unnerving precision. Behavioral monetization, the investors called it. Predictive compassion, the marketing team spun it. But all I saw was a screen watching my son sleep. They told me installing the system at home would help tune the algorithms. It wasn't surveillance, they said. It was insight. I swallowed that lie because I needed the paycheck. Single dad, autistic child, remote work. Too many moving parts in a life I hadn't finished assembling. I glanced toward the hallway. Radar had stopped moving, just sitting now, ears forward, head tilted toward the narrow line of light slipping out from under my son's door. Something about it felt different. I don't mean magical. Nothing in our lives ever played like that, more like tilted, like gravity had shifted an inch, and only the dog noticed. I got up quietly, walked over. The light from the hallway caught Radar's fur, casting a soft gold halo around him. I crouched beside him, brushing my hand along his thick coat. "You okay, buddy?" He didn't move, just looked at the door. And from behind it, I heard something. A rustle, then a thump, then stillness. I eased the door open. My son lay curled up at the far edge of the bed, knees pulled into his chest, blanket kicked off like always. The soft blue glow of the wall sensor painted him in moonlight. But it wasn't his usual chaos. No chewing the sheets, no rocking, no humming, just still. Radar didn't hesitate. He walked in, slow and careful, and sat beside the bed like a sentry. I waited for the boy to flinch, scream, claw at the air like he always did. Nothing, then it happened. A hand, so small, pale, shaking, reached out and touched the side of Radar's neck. I froze. He'd never done that, not once, not in 8 years. He wouldn't even make eye contact with me. His father, the only person who fed him, bathed him, spent every second trying to decode the patterns locked inside that brilliant, unreachable mind. But tonight, he reached. And Radar didn't move, didn't turn his head, didn't lick his hand. He just stayed still, letting my son's fingers explore him like a blind man touching something for the first time. I backed out of the room like I was leaving a church mid-sermon. The next morning, I found them tangled together on the floor. My son's face buried in Radar's flank, his hand still resting on the dog's side. I knelt down, half afraid it would vanish if I blinked. The AI chimed on my phone. Behavioral flag detected, subject numbers ASO 4229, non-standard tactile contact duration. Emotional shift probability, 76.3%. Recommend protocol escalation. I swiped it away, hard. This wasn't an escalation, it was a beginning. That night I lay in bed thinking about how long Radar had waited. Every bark left unanswered, every tail wag ignored. 8 years of patience wrapped in fur and instinct. No training, no reward, just this quiet loyalty that never once demanded love back. And now, finally, something had broken through, or maybe something had settled. In the tech world, we call it a stable feedback loop. when signal meets response, when chaos organizes itself just enough to form meaning. My son was still nonverbal, still didn't meet my eyes, still recoiled at too much light or certain textures or sounds like the microwave beep. But that night, something connected in him. Not because of therapy, not because of AI, because a dog decided not to give up. And for the first time in my life, I realized I might not be the one saving my son. He might already have everything he needs. He just needed us to be quiet long enough to listen. Patience engineered. Radar started waiting inside the door now, not pacing, not patrolling, just sitting beside the dresser while my son sorted his wooden blocks by shape. One of the few patterns that calmed him. Circles first, then hexagons, then the rest, thrown like shrapnel. But now he let them fall between Radar's front paws, sometimes stacking them on the dog's legs like towers. And Radar? He didn't flinch. He'd become more than just calm. He'd become code. Perfect response. Zero variance. If you asked me to define loyalty with data, I'd show you that damn dog. But the system didn't understand loyalty. The AI in our house kept pinging me, flashing behavioral charts, sending me hourly summaries with digestible language. Subject Namabdazo 4229. Touch frequency up 17.4%, eye drift movement up 9.2%, aggression incidents down 28%, behavioral rapport identified, early stage social attachment forming, recommended action, initiate reinforcement protocols B1, B3, reinforcement, like he was a rat in a maze. I pushed back. I didn't want stimuli inserted, no new light panels or synthetic centimeters or digital companions. But the system kept nudging me. I'd built it, in a way, helped train its early predictive branches on financial behaviors, risk tolerance, trade decisions under stress. Then it got swallowed by a health tech division and pivoted to emotional modeling. Same algorithms, different prey. Now they watched kids, and my son was their star case. Radar shifted again, not behaviorally, biologically. His own breathing seemed to slow in sync with my son's. He started refusing food unless it was near the boy, slept curled against the door, barked only once when the camera above the bed blinked red after an update. That got my attention. I climbed the ladder to disable the lens. The light came back on 20 minutes later. I checked the back end. The update wasn't local. It had come from headquarters. An experimental add-on, Nocturnal Sound Recognition Suite. It was listening for vocalization cues, which meant they were trying to catch him speaking. They wanted the moment. They wanted to own it. My son didn't speak. He hummed sometimes. A tremor in his throat like a wire trying to carry power. But no words, until one evening, just before the summer rain, he brushed Radar's back and made a sound I'd never heard. A vibration, soft and low, like a cello played in reverse. Radar lifted his head and matched the sound. Not a bark, a hum. They held it like two notes stitched from opposite sides of a broken piano. Imperfect, but real. And for the first time, I didn't cry because I was scared. I cried because something true had finally happened in this house. The next morning, my dashboard lit up like Christmas. Vocal signature detected, emotional resonance confirmed. Audio clip transmitted to HQ. Behavioral uplift triggered. Sponsor protocol ready. Sponsor. I didn't know there was a sponsor. I clicked deeper, saw the chain. A third-party neuro-research group had quietly licensed the AI's emotional dataset to refine effective triggers. They were testing wearable feedback collars on therapy dogs. My son, without permission, had just become a data point in a trial. I found the collar the next day, hidden in the new package the system authorized. I never ordered it. It pulsed when radar barked, released a sound I couldn't hear but made the dog twitch. Something ultrasonic, something wrong. I took it off. Radar whimpered once. I watched my son press his head into Radar's neck that night. Not for warmth, for comfort. The kind we forget how to measure. The kind no algorithm knows how to monetize. The next day, the system sent another recommendation. Introduce neuro-responsive collar. Track improvement. Reward thresholds, 86% engagement likelihood. They called it engagement. I called it invasion. But the worst part? I built the damn thing. The scaffolding. The learning loops, the cascade algorithms. I even named one of the predictive models Echo Ladder, because it mirrored human emotion by layering cause and effect probabilities in sequences. Now it was echoing in my own home, not for healing, for profit. And my son, the boy who had never looked me in the eye, had finally touched something real. Not a simulation, not a therapy model, a dog who never asked for anything but time. That night I turned off the main router, sat in silence, watched them lie together under the glow of a single lamp. My son's hand rose unprompted and stroked Radar's ear. No charts, no flags, no investors watching, just life. Just enough. The silence that fought back. I woke to Radar's growl, not a bark, not a warning, a deep, trembling vibration that carried through the floor and up my spine before my ears caught up. It was primal, old, the sound of something ancient saying, "Enough." I sat up. The digital clock on my desk blinked 3:47 a.m. A single red notification pulsed on the corner of my phone. New behavioral trial activated. Sponsor protocol. Live. Do not interrupt. My blood iced. I sprinted into my son's room. The collar was glowing. Blue rings pulsed like sonar from the device around Radar's neck. The dog was panting hard, low to the ground, ears flattened. My son sat upright in bed, fists clenched at his sides, a silent scream locked behind his clenched teeth. Then, the seizure hit. His body snapped backward, feet thrashing like a fish in sand. Radar lunged forward to brace him, planting himself against the mattress, howling now, loud and guttural, and the collar pulsed brighter. I ripped it off in a single motion. A shock arced through my fingers. I threw it across the room. The collar clattered off the wall and sizzled on the hardwood like a live wire. I pulled my son into my arms, held him tight, whispering nothing, just rhythm, something his system might understand. Radar circled twice and curled behind his back, like a second spine, anchoring him in place. The system had bypassed my permissions. It had taken control, and it nearly destroyed the one thing that had ever reached my son. That was the moment I became something else. Not a father, not a developer, a weapon. By sunrise, I was inside the architecture of the system, my admin access revoked, my personal node scrubbed. But I had designed parts of the backbone. I knew the scaffolding by muscle memory. They had stored everything. Every night my son hummed, every brush of his hand against Radar's fur, every time his sleep patterns aligned with emotional indicators. They were building a behavioral model to sell, not just for therapy, but for marketing emotional triggers. I wasn't just watching my son get studied. I had helped build his prison. I backed up every file I could find, copied encrypted logs to a drive shaped like a toy block, the kind my son used to chew when he was younger. Then I packed. No plan, no destination, I just knew we had to run. By nightfall, we were 50 miles from anything with cell reception, a rental cabin on a riverbank I hadn't visited since my teens. My dad used to fish here. He never said much, just held the line, quiet. I think he and my son would have understood each other in ways I never could. The signal here was dead. No towers, no satellites, no watching, just wind through trees, bugs singing, water lapping against rocks. I set up camp in the old cabin, No Wi-Fi, no Bluetooth, no eyes. That night, something happened. As the fire crackled and radar snored softly at my feet, my son rose from his mat. He crossed the room slowly, barefoot, dragging his fingers along the rough wood wall. Then, he stopped beside me. He didn't look at me, but he hummed. 3 notes, low, higher, back down. I froze. Radar lifted his head, matched it with a 4th note, gentler, a finish. Then, silence. It wasn't absence, it was peace. I knew we couldn't stay forever. But before we left, I filmed it, not for the world, for the record, a simple shot. My son's hand stroking Radar's back. His eyes open, but not on me. Just present, alive. I uploaded it to a new server. Encrypted, anonymous. Then I sent the rest, every corrupted trial file, every biometric violation, every unauthorized scan, to a single reporter I trusted. Someone who once wrote about AI ethics before her newsroom pivoted to celebrity gossip. 3 days later, it went nuclear. The company denied everything, then blamed contractors, then shuttered the entire division. There were lawsuits, settlements, interviews, but I stayed quiet. I wasn't interested in justice. I was interested in never letting them near my son again. At home, I tore the cameras from the ceiling, crushed every smart device, deleted the AI kernel I helped train. All that remained was Radar, and the boy he waited 8 years to reach. Now they moved like binary stars, gravitational twins. My son still didn't speak. Not really, but he hummed every night. Sometimes touched Radar's ear, sometimes mine. A new language, one not built on grammar, but trust. The exit algorithm. The subpoena arrived on a Thursday. Plain envelope, no warning, just a stamp, a seal, and a line of ink that said what the lawyers were too afraid to. You leaked proprietary data. You violated your NDA. You breached federal cybersecurity law. I folded the letter once, slow and careful. I didn't even read it twice, didn't have to. The war had already started the moment they put a collar on my dog and called it compassion. They underestimated one thing. I hadn't just backed up the data, I had indexed it, labeled every violation, wrote annotations in plain English that a jury could understand. Not code, not abstraction, truth. I put the envelope in a drawer. My son was humming again, 4 tones this time. Radar's tail thumped in rhythm, a call and response only they understood. And I smiled, because now, finally, I had a mission worth everything. The media fallout hadn't cooled, investors had fled. Ethics watchdogs swarmed like sharks over blood. The leaked data showed that the behavioral enhancement protocols weren't enhancements at all, they were manipulations. Psychological stimuli used not to heal but to train emotion like Pavlovian dogs. Even worse, they'd monetized the reaction curves. Advertisers had paid for access to emotional trajectories, predictive states that forecasted when children would feel vulnerable, calm, anxious. Emotional volatility mapped in real time to consumer influence, and my son? He had been patient zero. The case moved fast. Public outcry had a way of pressuring courts into momentum. A class action formed, the company rebranded, then folded. Executives resigned into million-dollar parachutes. But none of that changed what happened in our home. None of that gave back the silence they tried to monetize. One morning, a team came to retrieve their hardware, court-ordered. I met them at the door, said nothing. They stepped inside, saw the gutted rooms, wires yanked, sensors gone, walls patched like bullet holes. "This your dog?" one of them asked. Radar stood tall beside my son. The man didn't approach. Smart. I handed over a box of what was left, the parts I hadn't burned, the ones I wanted them to see. As they left, I caught one of them glancing at my son. The boy met his eyes for just a second. The man froze, like he'd seen something sacred and was ashamed. We moved after that, sold the house, bought a stretch of land 2 hours south where nothing ran except river water and wind. I took contract work again, This time in open source projects. No more proprietary black boxes, no more NDA prisons. I built a system. Simple, clean, private. For parents of neurodiverse children, no cameras, no surveillance, just tools to listen. Gently, I called it Echo Heart. I never put my name on it, didn't want the fame, just wanted other families to know what I'd learned too late. Sometimes connection can't be forced. It has to be waited on. My son doesn't speak in sentences, he may never. But he communicates, in touch, in tone, in breath, shared beneath blankets with a dog who outlasted silence. There are moments now, tiny, gold-threaded moments, where he lets me in. He'll lean his head against mine, he'll hum and wait for my response. He'll press Radar's paw to his chest like a heartbeat conductor, syncing his rhythm to the only friend who never asked him to change. One night, I asked him something, soft, casual. Is Radar your best friend? He didn't answer with words. He curled into the dog, let out a slow exhale, and for the first time, he smiled with his eyes. I turned off the last AI system in the house that week. A legacy voice assistant, hidden in the fridge, we never replaced. It blinked one final time as I pulled the plug. Goodbye, I whispered. Not soon enough. These days, our life is quieter. Not silent, just being tuned. Like we found the right frequency and stopped adjusting the dial. We hike together, my son, Radar, and me. He carries smooth stones in his pockets, stacks them in places he calls safe. Radar watches every step. And when my son hums, the forest answers. Wind through trees, creaks in branches, rustling grass. Not algorithmic, just alive. And enough. He waited long enough. The last photo I took wasn't for social media. No filters, no hashtags. Just a Polaroid I tucked into my wallet. A boy in the grass, his hand resting gently on Radar's chest as the dog sleeps beside him, both wrapped in late autumn sun. I never showed it to anyone. Because it wasn't proof, it was peace. The kind no algorithm can model. The kind you earn by staying. Through the years of tantrums, the hollow birthdays, the blank stares, Radar had waited 8 years for one touch. And now, my son touches everything. Tree bark, river stones, the belly of the dog who never left him. He still doesn't say my name. But sometimes he hums while holding my hand. And that's enough. Because in a world obsessed with speed, profit, and performance, he taught me the one thing no system ever will. Connection doesn't come from force. It comes from faith. Faith. And the quiet, watchful eyes of a dog who saw him before anyone else did, and refused to give up. You have been listening to He Never Looked at Me. Produced and adapted for audio narration by Past Now Read. Stories that need to be told. If you have a story that needs to be told, email it to stories@pastnowread.com. Please subscribe and hit that bell for future updates. If you liked this story, stay tuned for the next episode each Sunday at noon. Follow for more. If you like our stories, please tag with someone who may also like Past Now Read, stories that need to be told. It would really help our channel. Thank you. All content and images are copyrighted by Phone House LLC, 2025, all rights reserved.